tunnel vision inside, 'cause you're just not right, though it feels so right. Maybe if these things were different from all, can't help but fall, baby. It's just not fair, 'cause we seem to be the same.
All right, so we've been living in a very male-dominant society world, but more so nowadays, it's not necessarily the male that's dominating the world or society; it's the masculine energy, because we have women in power more now than ever. Corporately, politically, and any other lead that you can think of. But those women that are in such positions, they're usually operating from a masculine space because unfortunately their feminine energy isn't respected. How do you guys think about the whole masculine feminine dynamic in the world today?
I think there's an imbalance.
Definitely.
I don't think there's any harmony. I think we all have this duality of masculine and feminine energy, but I don't think we have really I don't think we've really come down to how to operate in it, how to find harmony in it. I think we always are in contention.
Nah, I can agree with that. So I guess we need to understand exactly what, from our perspectives, what feminine and masculine energy is. So what does that look like to us? What is that to us?
I mean, for me, feminine energy, of course, is being intuitive, being creative, feelings, emotions, tapping into all that. And, masculine energy is that support, that foundation. Providing. But, like Martin Lee said, we're definitely out of whack. Individually, cohesively, there's no balance, and we definitely need to get back to that balance.
No, I agree.
I think that starts in the household. Everything starts at the head. If there is a father involved in that household or that community, somebody who is, I guess you would say, a manly man, a patriarch, then that's where you can I would say gravitate. The men who want to be manly men or patriarchs will gravitate to that. But when you take that man out, and that's what society's doing right now, all of the men are, I guess, what would you say? They're becoming more, or taking on more feminine traits. Most of them are being raised. I can't say most of them. A lot of them are being raised by their mothers, and the mothers are taking on the manly traits or masculine traits, and the boys are confused and they don't know whether I want to go to be masculine or feminine, and they don't know how to really express themselves.
Yeah, they're not. I can't say they, but we're not operating in a space where there's balance, right? Where you see, okay, this is father, this is mother, or this is mentor, or there's someone that you can look up to or look to for feminine energy or for masculine energy. It doesn't always have to be mother and father, because some people don't have a mother and father, and some people don't have that space. But there is still someone you can look to for, or you can actually model. And I think in today's society, people aren't, well, I can say for young men, especially for myself, growing up in a household, seeing my father operate in his masculinity, and then seeing my mother submit to his masculinity and operate fully in her feminine energy. And when he needed her in her space, he was able to rely or lean on her, right? But then when he needed him to be assertive, to be a leader, to be courageous, then he stepped up in his masculine energy. And then with that, I saw the reflection and saw, okay, between these two people, I have those traits within myself. But when there's an imbalance, when we don't see that at home, we don't see it in school, when we don't see it with the political figures, when we don't see it in our society, then it creates a free space to, hey, do whatever, be whatever.
Yeah.
And then you lean to what makes you feel more comfortable, because some people feel more comfortable in their feminine, energy, even though they're male. Same thing with a woman. Some women feel more comfortable in the masculine space, but what it creates is imbalance.
I think it's also about really talking to your children. So I have a son. His name is Marcellus. Big Cellus.
Big Cellus.
Big Cellus.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times in the household, because me and his father, we're not together. However, since me and Marcellus are by ourselves in the household, his dad is involved. But you know, we live, it's just me and Marcellus together. So when he's having those moments where he's thriving in his masculinity, you know, I encourage it. So that's confidence when he's being supportive, when he's in his confidence, you know, I'm there and I'm encouraging that. And then he has his moments because he's 5 years old. He have his moments where he's very feminine, he's very expressive, you know what I'm saying? He's very
Emotional, creative.
he's very emotional, he's very creative. I encourage that too. And subconsciously, I think with him, when he is in his feelings, like when he's crying or whatever, I think he kind of like wants to pull away. But I encourage, like, no, it's okay for you to cry, but self-reflect.
Right.
You know, like, don't just be here crying and just feeling bad for yourself. Like, while you're having that moment, make sure you're self-reflecting. So I talk to him and I'd be like, you know, it's okay that you feel this way, but you know, what do you need to do better? What smart choices do you need to make? And so it definitely does start in the household. And I think even if it's a single parent household, there's still healthy ways to decipher between the masculine and the feminine.
I'm glad that y'all brought up the whole household thing, because in my household, it was opposite. My mother wore the pants. She was the masculine, like dominating one running the household. My father had a much softer energy. He was much more emotional. But you know, being the woman that I am now, like I understand, like, because of how they grew up. But in turn, that has affected me and how I operate, because I was going to say unfortunately, but I'm not going to say that because that's negative. I operate from such a masculine space because all I had was this image of a strong Black woman.
Right.
Taking care of her, you know, 3 girls, single parent, you know, working 3 jobs, you know, protecting and everything. And then, you know, I could run to my dad and cry, but then he's going to end up crying with me. Instead of being the supportive.
Baby.
I'm like, no, y'all.
You gotta be crying first.
Instead of being the supportive male foundation that I needed at such times, you know, he cried with me and I'd just be like, oh, I don't even want to cry no more. But
Daddy,
you know,
you a punk.
But you know, with that being like the forefront, you know, as far as like masculine and feminine, I myself have internalized embracing my masculine energy more, and I don't want to do that. Like I saw my mom. Only time I saw my mom feminine is if she was dating somebody. And that in turn is the only time I show my femininity. And I don't want to be that way no more. You know, women, we only want to show our femininity if we feel safe. But I want to create that safe space for myself so I can bask in my own femininity by myself. And, you know, I don't need a man to do this.
It sounds like it's situational. Because,
situational?
Yeah, I have 4 brothers, and we would always like compete, and not compete like I'm the better brother. They love me more than they love you. It wasn't like that, but we would always compete. Like we join on each other, and let's see whose feelings get hurt first. Let's
see who's the softest.
Yeah. We play football. Who's the fastest? You know, who could catch it? And I feel like that's more masculine energy, because it wasn't like, oh, you hurt me, and you know, going into a ball or anything. And it was situational, because as boys we still cried too. Like if we got hurt badly, it wasn't that bad, but you know, if we got hurt badly, we would cry, and we would run to. I could speak for myself. I would run to my mother. When I got a boo boo or anything like that.
Not a boo.
Yeah.
Taking it back.
Yeah, but it's all situational, because as I grew up, I would have more masculine moments, and with women I would have more feminine moments, because the women want to feel like, oh, I'm safe. You know, so you have to make them feel like they're safe.
You have to be empathetic.
Yeah, you have to be empathetic, and that's what I struggle with the most, being empathetic, because that's tough. Why? It's okay.
But see,
I love you.
Okay. I was gonna say, I understand the situational aspect of that, because out of me and my sisters, there's 3 of us. I'm the oldest, and I thrive in my masculine energy the most out of all 3 of us. And my sisters were actually the ones that pointed out to me, hey, Fiona, this is probably something we need to heal from. Because we were having a discussion like, why don't you go ahead and buy more dresses now? Why don't you express yourself? Why don't you express yourself more femininely now instead of waiting for that masculine energy to be in your life to make yourself feel safe? And again, it's going back to what I saw, in my mother, and that's the only time that she thrived in that energy. And then they in turn let me know, hey, well, maybe this is something you actually need to heal from because this
Right.
isn't healthy. This is not how you should think and process things and stuff. So that's what started me on my own little personal energy in finding that balance that
Right.
that we don't have at all within myself.
I feel some tears coming on.
So she holding it.
Like,
I'm not letting them go.
I'm seeing something, and I'm feeling that something you said earlier. It really resonates. Is as a man, we want to know what makes you feel safe, how to make you feel safer. Like what are we not doing to make you feel safer?
Thank you. It's those traits that I was talking about, like the support, the foundation, the leadership. We lack leaders, male leaders. Healthy. Yes, leading. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's something that's definitely lacked today. But again, like Aaron said, it goes back to the household. Why we are lacking that things, and I'm not finding that in men that I'm dating, talking to. I'm not finding that leadership, that support, that foundation.
So is there a lack of trust? Like, do women trust men to operate in their masculinity without being toxic, without being overbearing, without being over-aggressive, without being controlling? Do we trust that?
I feel like a lot of times with women, and I can speak for myself, the times where I have like branched out to date, I was dating from a place where I didn't even feel safe and secure with myself.
Ooh.
So then what ends up happening, I attract those type of people who's the same as me, and now we're trauma bonding.
Right.
And so you're not thriving in your masculinity and femininity, and neither am I, because we're coming together with our traumas. So now that I'm at a place where I'm practicing and working on, balancing out both my masculine and feminine, I can say what I need from a male in order for me to feel safe is for him to be practicing the same thing that I'm practicing. So, for example, with his masculinity, be supportive, be present, be confident. Masculinity is also directional, so they have you guys have a sense of direction, and I need that in my masculinity. Now with my femininity, allowing me to express my emotions, allowing for me to be creative. I'm a dancer, so the way that I love to dance, I do many styles. I do contemporary, I actually know how to pop lock, and I know how to break dance.
Can we see an example?
Coming soon. But I prefer to be very sensual when I dance, no matter what style that I'm doing. And for a lot of men, that makes them feel very insecure. They feel like it is attention seeking, and it's not. That
Make
is
you tip
me.
your chair backwards.
But that's society,
Yes.
though, with what's like put out, like for us, being grown women, to express ourselves sensually, like it's looked down upon, like, oh, she just wants my attention, No, I just want to bask in my femininity. This has nothing to do with you.
I like how I feel when I'm
in this space.
mode. Yeah, like I love how I feel. I love looking at myself. I love that energy overall. So just having someone that allows for me to thrive in that energy and is not insecure.
Good question.
That's what make me feel safe.
So, in order for y'all to feel safe, y'all just want a dude that can lead y'all in the right direction, in the right way, in the right manner.
Yeah, with good intent.
But also knowing how to nurture me as well, because he still have to have the feminine in order to thrive in his masculinity in a healthy way.
It's kind of hard to nurture because that's not our nature.
It's in you guys.
It is, yeah. That's what we're talking about, balance. You have both. Well, let me ask y'all this. So does feminine energy show up? Because we're talking about how masculine energy shows up in our lives. Does feminine energy, show up in your lives in any way? How does it look when it does show up for you?
Well, I'm an athletic trainer, so I have clients that have different mindsets. They come in the gym, different walks of life, and I have a lot of people that cry. And so
You're bringing the tears out.
Yeah.
Your workouts hurt. Like, let's just be real. Like, that's why people are crying.
No, they cry.
were.
They cried. They
But-
cried because I had this one lady. She came in the gym. I'm not gonna say her name because she may watch this. But I had this one lady come in the gym and she cried, and I was like, "All right, are you okay? When you're done, let's get back to it. Because I can't really. You pay me. I have a job." You know, and if you're sitting here crying, I'm not gonna say, "Oh, let me cry with you."
Well,
I
no,
can't do that.
That's understandable, though. You know what I'm saying? Because even in that moment, yes, you have a job, but even in that moment, there's still a way to be nurturing.
I felt bad. Is that good enough?
But did you express
Well, boy.
any, you know, because like, even though, yeah, that is your job. I mean, in all of our jobs, because I've worked customer service, you know, all my life. And not only do I have to take care of the customer service, you know, I have to take care of my customer psychological needs as well. They go hand in hand, and you just have to, again, that word balance,
Yeah.
you know, be able to balance in between the two and know how to give enough without giving too much where it is like compromising the work
I
relationship.
think that day I did give her less reps because she was crying.
Well, that was
But
nice.
she
I
still.
think in a situation like that, to tap into your feminine energy, you have to be empathetic. Intuitively, you have to know, okay, this person is not in a good place right now to work out, maybe mentally, physically. So you have to tap into those things and relate to that person. May say, hey, you know what, let's skip out today, or like you did, let's go lighter today, you know, because today you're a little off. And that's operating in a feminine way without without being less of a man. You know,
Right.
it still makes you a man, but you're in balance to the point where you can relate to someone that's totally different than you. You know, that has a different, because you're very stern, stone faced, like, let's do this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but not everyone is like that. Not everyone operates that way.
Yeah.
Now, well, Martin Glee, now how do you tap into your feminine energy, and what does that look like for you?
I think Seven mentioned something earlier in creativity, you know, like poetry, art, even sometimes, even the way I dress and present myself.
You dress like a girl.
No.
Oh my God.
All right. No, not like dress like a girl, but, you know, like, you know, really caring about my appearance.
Kind of like the metro, how they call it.
Not metro.
But a metrosexual is nothing but a man
Let's not
that,
put no
that
labels
takes...
on anybody. I don't do well with labels.
So you get your nails done, right? Because I do.
Yeah, I mean.
Facials? You get facials?
No, I don't get facials.
I get facials. What's wrong with
Yeah,
facials?
nothing's wrong with a facial. I think we all have a different definition of self-care and how we want to
Right.
appear. But also, I think I can, you know, I'm working on, you know, connecting with people emotionally better. You know, that's something I struggle with. But creativity, and I also like my place to look clean. Like, I like my car to look clean, my house to look clean, everything to just look clean. So I think that's kind of like feminine energy in a sense.
So we were talking about like the household and gender roles and energy within our household. Do you believe in like these societal gender roles, you know? And then like, as far as, you know, okay, how can I put it? The feminine gender roles, masculine gender roles, like if a man is operating from more of a feminine space, does that change his gender role in the household? Or?
I think a lot of that has to do with tradition. Because traditionally, growing up, men in my family, we work. You know, women, they cook, they clean, they raise kids. You know, traditionally. And a lot of our tradition is based on religion, based on religious values.
Right.
What's the divine order? How did God set it?
Right.
But every tradition is different. And honestly, it may not work that way. Like, there's different harmony. My father knew how to cook. My father knew how to clean. But he leaned on my mother for that, you know, because he's out doing other things. And I believe is you have to find your harmony. What space do you operate out of the best? Right. Because sometimes, this may sound crazy, but some men don't operate well in their masculinity. Some men are not great leaders. Right. Some men are not courageous. Right. Some men are not independent. Some men are very codependent.
So let's talk about that. So what would y'all consider the negative aspect or the imbalanced aspects to be of masculinity and femininity? Like, what does that look like? So for example, with masculine energy is more so when there's an imbalance, is more aggressive, wanting to fight all the time. Like, you ever come across a man that's always in fighting? He always fighting. It's not like it's his profession or anything. He's just super aggressive and he's always in something. Has no sense of direction. What else? Let's see. Controlling.
Yeah. I think that
is a big one.
I think that's why we're in the 12th hour, right? That's why there's chaos, because there's such an imbalance of where people are personally. You mentioned earlier that you want to date someone that's working on themselves. You want to make sure that you have that balance within yourself first. And I think if we were all working towards that balance within ourselves and understanding, do you know yourself at the end of the day?
Right.
Or you are a reflection of everything that you agree with? You know? You know, like, are you in tune with yourself, or are you just everything you like on Instagram?
That's hard in today's world because you find that people want to be told what to like instead of thinking for self. Well, it's not hard for me because I know who I am and I work daily on growing into who I am, you know, more so, and becoming that person, you know, every day. But, you know, in today's world, you know, we're told what to like. We're told what to agree with. People don't want to think for themselves. So that, again, is where we're finding that imbalance because people aren't thinking for themselves.
But also, too, there has to be a space that's safe for them to think for themselves. And with the world that we live in, because of social media mainly, when people are thinking for themselves and when they are making certain decisions, you have people that come in and have their opinion about it. And there's nothing wrong with having an opinion, but it's all about the presentation of what you're saying. So if you're going against what somebody is thinking or feeling or whatever the case may be, you're not creating a safe space for them to express themselves. You're not respecting their perspective.
I think, cause my chair is burning up right now because this what I want to say. I think that in order to really be yourself and know yourself, you have to get rid of outside noises. Because a lot of us are listening to all of our best friends, our mothers, our fathers. And I'm not saying don't listen to your parents or listen to your friends, but you have to take what people say as a grain of salt.
Right.
You have to have your own thoughts, your own understanding. And I feel like I spoke with a client. I could put her name out there. Her name is Karen. I spoke with her yesterday.
Karen.
Yeah, her name. Hey, stop that. She's actually listening. Okay. Come on. Nah, but Karen told me if you go on a walk and you just picture if there were no houses, no cars, no nothing, and you just walk, imagine the scenery that it would be. You would really be able to focus and think. And we're just talking about houses. Now you have your phone. Now you have social media. Now you have the news. Now you have politics. There's no way you can really know yourself and understand yourself if you're hearing all of these outside distractions. So I really feel like if you really want to get to know yourself, you have to be by yourself. And I'm not saying I'm not saying be by yourself for forever, but for a period of time in your life, you should really be by yourself. So I encourage people to move out of their parents' houses if the means are there. Move away from friends if it's right, you know, if you can do that, and just know yourself, understand yourself. Go out to eat by yourself, go to movies by yourself, and be okay in your own skin.
I want to speak on that, and I know you have a point that you want to make, but I want to have a moment of vulnerability because you spoke about influences. So there was a group of guys that I grew up with, and they influenced me a lot. You know, people you play sports with, people you go to parties with, and how I was raised and how I was influenced was two different things. And there was a point in my life where I thought it would be cool or it was masculine to just womanize. Just be with plenty of women. Have many women around me, sleeping with a lot of women, and being overt about it too.
I'm not even going front. That used to be me too. Man.
Yeah, like just, you know, that locker room talk, you know, I'm not talking like, you know, Trump grab her by the, but
oh my gosh.
No, I didn't, it wasn't like that, but it was still some like, dang, that's crazy. A lot of jesting and a lot of language that was toxic. And I have two sisters, right? And in those moments, I wasn't defending them.
But see, that would be considered, in my opinion, hypermasculinity. Like in that type of situation, because there's nothing wrong with being confident, but it is something wrong with being overly confident to where now you're just doing it to stroke your ego.
Right, and it becomes manipulative because it's becoming toxic in a
Right.
sense because it's not benefiting my society, right? And I had some of the women I had no pure intentions with. It was more so just for me,
Right.
you know? And it was like, afterwards, I don't want to talk to you or I want to be near you. And it's just like, that's not fair because if someone did that to my sister, if someone did that to my mother,
It's fight.
Right.
I'd be heated.
Yeah.
But then I have to see how my actions reflect in society.
Right.
Because when I slap hands with Aaron, I'm like, oh, yo, this girl I was with last night, yo, that's crazy. And then somebody go, hey, yo, I was with this girl last night. I'm like, yo, what's her name? And he says my sister's name. Now,
Like,
now I'm mad.
Right.
Now I'm mad.
Right.
But now I'm mad. But it's like, but if you don't
just
want
did
it,
that to somebody's
I just did
sister, somebody's daughter.
Mhm.
somebody's daughter, somebody's mom.
So Proverbs 18 says, a man who isolates himself seeks his own desires. He rages against all wise judgment. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart.
Mm.
Hmm.
That totally
So
goes
I
with
just
what
want
you
y'all to
just
think
said.
about that. We're going to take a moment of silence for a second to just
Yeah.
process
To
Read
that.
dwell
it one
on
more
that.
time.
Yeah, read that
All
one.
right,
Yeah,
Proverbs
that one.
18, verse 1 to 2 says, a man who isolates himself seeks his own desires. He rages against all wise judgment. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. He doesn't care about what everybody else thinks. I'm going to do me.
Right.
I don't care if you're wise. I don't care if you know it all. I know what I know, and I don't really care what you think.
So is that a form of hyper masculinity?
I would consider that to be a form of hypermasculinity or femininity,
Yeah.
just depending on how you portray it. But also too, when you just read that, it was kind of like, so I have like this thing where I like break down words, and opportunity, I always break that word down, and it's one of those things where either you're an op or you're doing something to create unity. So when you just read that, it was just like, wow, they're just for themselves. So it's okay with you doing what you want to do and speaking how you want to speak, walking how you want to walk, talking how you want to talk, whatever. But if you're just doing it to, once again, stroke your own ego, to benefit yourself, to put not real confidence into yourself, what's the point? Because it's not serving the community, it's not serving the people around you. And I'm not going to say like I've never been at that point, because I have, which is why I'm able to recognize it when it's being done.
Right.
So yeah, that quote, yeah,
So
that
what,
verse.
what do
that
y'all
scripture.
think about another verse in the Bible? Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. What is that operating in femininity?
I would say a little bit, because that shows emotion, that shows caring, that shows. But then in
can
the
be the
same sense,
opposite.
yeah, but I say
'Cause
in
if
the same
you-
sense, it's masculine too, because it shows support. It shows some sort of foundation. Like if you're supporting your neighbor and loving them as you love yourself, that's feminine and masculine.
I think it's just encouraging balance.
Yeah,
But
right.
also, if you're not balanced, then you're gonna love thy neighbor how you love yourself. So if you're not being a good friend of yourself, if you're not speaking to yourself kindly,
That's good.
if you're just, you're gonna reflect that.
Yeah,
Even
on
if
everything.
even if you're doing the best you can not to. And like I said, I'm only speaking for myself. Every single time I've been in a place where I haven't been kind to myself and I haven't been speaking to myself in a good way, and I attempt to build these connections, I end up being in a place where I have anxiety, because it seems almost forced. Don't get me wrong, my intentions is there. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's the goal. But when I'm at a place where I'm not good and I'm going out and I'm socializing and I'm talking to people and I'm attempting and working towards being good to them, it doesn't feel good, because I'm not even doing it to myself.
Hurt
So it
people,
gives
hurt
me
people.
anxiety.
Very good. Yeah.
So I'm like not even.
And I think that's why there's a lot of chaos and social imbalances, because there's a lot of hurt people, depressed people coming outside pretending to be okay.
Right.
And they're pretending like they know themselves, and then there's like a huge identity crisis right now. I really feel like there's no real guidance. It's like, ask somebody who they look up to and who they model after, and most people are gonna name they're gonna name either an athlete or a celebrity or someone that's completely disconnected from them, and you only get one scope of their being, And we're not. There's a lot of, like, when you're talking about those people that are going out and meeting people, and we're not getting people in their wholeness. We're not getting whole people a lot. We're getting like partial people that are broken, limping around.
Zombies.
Yeah.
And see, and that's the problem too. I feel like what you said, people looking up to other people. I think that's also a problem. Like, I don't think nobody should look up to anybody. I think you should look to people. Like, I look to
Like a
y'all for
mentor.
certain
Right.
things, but I don't look up to nobody because I'm not going to put myself in a position for you to, you know, disappoint me or for me to feel like I have to reach a certain point because there may be something about you that I have that you're lacking.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
vice versa.
Vice versa.
That's true.
You know?
And that creates that balance.
Right.
Something I wanted to get into. These two things. When it comes to energy, for me, I think that they are the dominant ones in femininity and masculinity. Logic versus emotions.
Oh, yeah.
And like, why are emotions necessarily associated with feminine energy and logic? Well, let's start with that. Why is emotions necessarily associated with feminine energy, and do we think that's healthy to just associate it with femininity?
But I think that's, we identified what femininity is and what characteristics. Empathy was one, you know, emotions and feeling. I think to be a nurturer, you have to have that as a dominant trait. So I think it's a strength to have emotions because that's one of my biggest weaknesses. Like sometimes I really don't feel, I'm not tapped into everyone's emotion. Like when someone is empathetic, they can watch a commercial and cry. I can watch a commercial and be like,
But, okay, so that just made me think of people who call themselves empaths. Okay, that's like a thing now. That's a trend now.
That's a title, right?
That's a trend now. Everybody is an empath. I'm an
not.
empath. I can feel this. I can feel that, and it's like
We would be lying.
everybody. But it's one of those things when people say that to me, or when I see people promoting that because it's a promotional thing now as well. 'Cause you know, but when I see people promoting that, I'm like, okay, well, isn't everybody technically an empath? Like, maybe I don't want to feel as much as you do.
Straight up.
Doesn't change the fact that I don't feel. Like, I'm empathetic as well. I'm not, you know, maybe I'm just not exerting that energy as much as you are because you're actually trying to be in other people's feeling in business on that level.
I'm the exerter
That's how I
of emotional
Some
stuff.
people lean on emotion. I lean more on logic and rationality. Yeah, because I'm more focused on direction.
But see, like between the two, like everything else we've been talking about, like you have to have balance because
Literally.
sometimes when it comes to making a choice, thinking a certain way, you know, you might have to do so from a logic standpoint, or you might have to do so from an emotional standpoint, depending on the situation. You can't approach every situation with logic because it may not be logic to approach this particular situation, you know, with that type of thinking.
Because you got to listen to your intuition, and intuition is your feminine energy.
Right.
So if you, say for instance, you always see like the pictures of somebody walking a road and then the road splits. You have no clue which road goes where. So now you have to actually make a decision and choose your direction. The only thing that you can rely on in that moment is your intuition, which is your feminine.
Wow.
And then you make the decision and you're confident in it, which is the masculine.
Right.
So whenever you do make that decision, like, okay, I'm gonna go to the right or I'm gonna go to the left, that once you make that decision, that's the masculinity that's now gonna carry you because you're confident in it.
Let me ask you now. That I mean, with all of that being said, that just means that men and women are just naturally supposed to be together because the man has direction. The woman has the intuition. That means we can walk together, men and women, and just go straight and go wherever we need to go.
But again,
because that creates balance.
That doesn't necessarily mean romantically either.
It could be a business partnership,
right? Yeah. Well, we do need each other.
I was going to ask Aaron because he didn't answer which of these emotions, logic, or
I
emotion.
don't answer questions. Sorry.
Which one do you operate out of and why?
Which one?
Yeah, logic or emotion.
Logic.
Logic.
You see stone face.
Logic. Well, logic is just, it makes sense.
You know,
most of the time when, okay, I'm a business owner, I'm an athletic trainer, I'm gonna do what makes sense for my business. Outside of the business, when I have family or I guess romantic life, I'm gonna do what makes sense.
So why doesn't operating out of emotion make sense for you?
Because sometimes when you operate out of emotion, it'll bring you to a place where you cannot prosper. I believe when you really use that emotion and you want to just operate in emotion, then it it may get you into some trouble.
It's reactionary.
I don't
Yeah.
agree
Your key
with
word
that.
is sometimes, though.
Right.
So it's sometimes with both logic and emotion.
Mhm.
Sometimes using logic is not always the best thing.
Right.
And sometimes just simply just being emotional is not a good thing. So they have to meet in the middle
I'm still
when
learning.
you're making any decision.
Hold on. Hold on. I know you got something to say.
Yeah. You got it.
Where I am right now in life,
Right.
and I know I'm still young. I'm only 23. I'll
Ooh.
be 24 in July. But where I am right now, I've used a lot of logic to
Mhm.
get to where I am. I'm not in the best place, but I'm
But you somewhere.
I'm pretty
Right.
joyful
Yeah.
where I am, and I've used a lot of logic.
Right.
You know, emotions in relationships with others, but in direction, logic.
Right.
Logic, because I know where I'm going, so I'm gonna do what makes sense in this direction that I'm going.
Your
I'm
purpose
not gonna,
driven.
I feel sad, so I'm gonna go this way. I really don't know, but I feel sad, so I'm gonna. No,
We're
I can't
over
do that.
exaggerating emotion.
Well, let me ask this now. Do you find that it can be negative to be more extreme in one than in the other?
No, balance.
Yeah, but I'm
Balance.
saying, but you're not presenting balance in those emotions, to me right now.
I think when
You're being more extreme in the logic sense, and do you feel that can be, like hindering at any point or, affect you negatively if you don't find that balance between the two and you're only operating extremely out of this logical space and you're never thinking emotionally?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
Okay, If it don't make money, it don't make sense.
Come on,
I
man.
think honestly, if you lean too much on logic, you stop being able to connect with people.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
logic
That's
is
true.
logic
Mhm.
is only you. That
Right.
makes sense to you.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To your
And
world.
it's how you view the world. But being connected emotionally, being able to connect intuitively with others makes you see their perspective. Because what did it say? A foolish man has no understanding.
Mm,
And if you only lean on your own understanding, that's the
That-
definition of a fool.
correct.
Yeah. So if you're too logical, you're just a fool.
So are we going 50-50 or are we going 70-30?
No, it's 50-50 and everything.
Yeah,
You got to have balance across the
it's
board.
no
in
numbers
life.
involved. It's balance. You know.
Mhm.
Literally.
Yeah, and I think when you rely too much on emotion, you make irrational
Mhm.
decisions, and when you rely too much on logic, you're disconnected. You know, like politics is very disconnected because it makes sense by the book, by the paper, but then you're not in the
Right.
neighborhoods that you're making rules for.
Mm.
It's kind of like with emotion when you're going through a breakup, and this can be a breakup, relationship, business, friendship, or whatever. And you get so used to a routine with a person and you get so used to being around a person, but ultimately that person is not healthy for you.
Right.
Mm.
Feelings wise, you're going to want to probably go back, but logically,
Shouldn't.
you shouldn't.
Mm.
Been there.
And that's when the two meet in the middle. It's like, okay, this is my decision and this is what I need to do. So they carry each other.
There's a biblical story that I think shows logic and emotion, like the perfect balance, right? There's these two women that have a baby, and one's claiming to be the mother,
Oh man, I know
what you're
that.
talking about.
and then the king uses logic,
Mhm.
and he also he manipulates their emotions to see who the true mother is.
Mhm.
And he goes, okay, this is easy. If both of you guys are the mother, we'll just split the baby in half with a sword, and y'all both will have a baby.
Mhm.
The mother of the baby says, no, she can have it. I just want the baby to live.
Mhm.
So at that moment, he found out who the true mother was by using logic
Right.
and by tapping into the emotion of the
Yeah.
mother. Because
very good.
the real mother's never going to want to see the baby split in half.
The other
Right.
lady was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
split it. Yeah, split that baby. And it's like
50-50.
yeah. But that's where I think that biblical story showed me, and I could quote it, I could drop the scripture, but I don't have that with me. But I think in this moment, it shows that perfect balance. How
Right.
if you have an understanding of both logic and emotion, you see how humans work, and
Right.
you see how we really operate.
So in order to be a great leader, you have to have both.
Both.
Right, definitely,
Literally.
definitely. Now, speaking of having both, that balance in both of those, like for us personally, like how well do we know ourselves? How well do we know how well we're balanced across the board? How well do you know yourself, Sev, in this masculine and feminine dynamics?
Got you. So anytime where I notice an imbalance with me, my place looks It's tragic. My place is very tragic, okay? Laundry, we're not even gonna speak on that. But
Laundry in the
laundry,
kitchen.
let me tell you something. The laundry just be crazy. I find myself being more anxious. I find myself not making the best decisions. Like the logic is not meeting the emotion. It's just emotion. When I'm imbalanced. What else? I have a more challenging time finding my words with certain things. So for me, I'm finally at a place now where I'm getting to a point where I feel super secure with myself. So other people prior to me getting to this point see me and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so confident, you're so this, you're so that. And it's like, no, little did y'all know behind closed doors, baby. Oh my gosh, I was going through it. But now I'm finally at a place where I'm thriving in my confidence. Like I feel pretty good about myself. And I still have my moments where, you know, I may be lacking, but I know myself so well that I know how to identify those things and I know what action needs to be taken and I'm more willing to take that action now.
Right.
Versus before I could identify it, but there was no action behind. Like my words and my actions, they weren't meeting up. You know?
Constant conflict.
Yeah. So they wasn't meeting up, but I always had the wisdom and I always had the knowledge. It's just nothing met in the middle. So now is at a point where they're now meeting in the middle. And I'm able to be like, okay, this is what I want. This is what I need to do. Okay, let's get it done.
Okay.
No excuses.
How about you, Martin Lee?
When I'm out of balance, because I mean, I'm still struggling with what side do I lean on the most, you know? And I think I get anxious as well. In the last 2 years, I experienced depression. You know, just going into places where I start doubting myself, not understanding which space to operate out of because I know I have both and I'm dominant in certain areas, but not knowing how to really move in it can sometimes make me suppress and sulk, feel sorry for myself, not want to be social, kind of want to isolate myself. And I'm learning to have that balance because when I do have that balance, I feel harmony. I can connect with people that I don't understand, that I don't really know their background, but I have enough understanding to be open to that. So when I take time to reflect, and I'm a huge advocate for meditation. So whoever's new to it or hasn't done it before, practice meditation because it's your time to face everything that's going on in your mind, any question, any doubt, or even affirmations that you have within yourself that you didn't even know about, you know? Because, I mean, just like we have these dark places in our subconscious, we have these very, very bright, almost amazing places that we haven't really unlocked. So spending more time in those places just so I can get out of that space of depression, isolation, and, you know, self-doubt, you know?
How well do you know yourself,
I know that I'm still learning, just listening to everything that y'all are saying.
Right.
And I think I'm the youngest of the bunch here,
Yeah, that's
so
good.
I have a lot to learn. I pat myself on the back and pat my parents on the back for helping me to gain the success where I am right now. But I still have a lot of growing to do, so I'm still trying to learn, honestly. And it's been pretty tough because I love to be by myself. I love to take myself out to eat. I love to do things by myself. And I would honestly say I would much rather be by myself, but I'm learning to be open to people, learning to be more in touch with my emotional side rather than logic. Because God just taught me something, you know? I everything's logic, straight path, logic. This is how I think. And this thing spoke to me because I was like, wow, I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn, but in knowing myself, I just have to be more emotional, more empathetic. I don't do funerals because I don't want to be around emotional people because it I wouldn't even say it freaks me out, but I'm learning to know myself.
I would say for myself, I can pride myself now being the oldest of the crew, that I do know myself well. And I'm still learning myself every day. I pride myself in learning myself even more every day and growing in that. Like, I just recently learned some things that I thought this is just a part of me. No, they're actually traumas. And I'm working through the
When you said traumas, traumas.
They're just traumas, you know. And I'm working through those things to dead those things, because if I you know, keep hold of those traumas, and if I don't process them and see them, you know, for what they are, then I'm not going to reach my highest self. Yeah, like I said, it's something that I'm growing and flourishing on every day. But if you had one thing to like take away from this, or give to yourself, or give to somebody when it comes to finding this balance in these dynamics, you know, what would that be?
For me, while I'm telling everyone else, I'm also telling myself, self-reflect as much as possible. Be open to receive, and just trust your intuition. Like, go with what you feel that logically makes sense.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking off that. Just gaining more understanding of the world, gaining more understanding of others, and taking that time, like Aaron spoke on, to reflect on self, isolate for a little bit to get an understanding of yourself. Because the more you understand the world, you can identify where you stand in it. And don't let your influences influence you to the point where you're out of touch with your core. Stoneface.
He was in deep thought.
He was. He was taking in what we
That's
were saying.
really good.
As he does. But I, like you guys, time to self is key. So you can really hear yourself, hear where you are in balance, you know, really feel that within yourself. So you can tune in and work on those things that are out of whack in you, so that you can, you know, operate in both healthy.
The face you made after you were done talking.
So balance between masculine and feminine energy.
Here, here.
Cheers.
Aaron
Cheers
got
to
a little sippy sip.
Cheers to Aaron, who
No, to toast with.
yeah.
Cheers, mate.
You have nothing left.
Tunnel vision inside, cause you're just not right, though it feels so right. Baby, if these things